While I was struggling to figure out my Instapot, Ghost Robotics and the U.S. Air Force were collaborating on semi-autonomous robotic security in the form of a dog. RoboDogs. Now the 325th Security Forces Squadron at Tyndall Airbase in Panama City, Florida is the first to implement the robot dogs in patrolling. Today, the squadron commander of the base and the CEO of Ghost Robotics join me to share how the RoboDogs came to be, how they're used, and what the future may hold. Ready to geek out and gear up, collaborative super duo, Major Jordan Criss and Mr. Jiren Parikh. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you like how I settled on collaborative super duo? I feel like that fits you guys. You guys are just like an unexpected duo that makes me love all of this all the more. So,
great story behind that too.
And this is a blast. It truly has been.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. And especially thank you for coming all the way from Pennsylvania and all the way from Panama City. Neither one of those are short feats. So, did the RoboDog get to ride shotgun?
No, he ran in the back as security. So
okay. Well, I would love to start with the origin story from the Air Force perspective. Was semi-autonomous security kind of already on the Air Force's radar, or was this a happy coincidence?
So the Air Force is known for leveraging technology, right? The Air Force is known for bringing the future faster. It's exactly what our Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Brown, wants us to do. Look at innovative ways to, leverage industry partners, use current technology to best get after solving some of the world's most complex problems, right? Because the Air Force, obviously we're an arm of the Department of Defense, but we do so much in terms of humanitarian aid, rescue, obviously kinetic operations, right? Helping take out bad guys, but it's more about how we help take care of other people and everybody else that needs our help, right? So the Air Force has also taken on a new enterprise of the AIRFORCE initiative, where they're teaming with small businesses, right? Smaller contractors to, again, help out that growing industry, right? Help out that budding industry because they're hungry. Like Jiren, his company was hungry. They want to do the right things for the right reasons. So again, the Air Force has facilitated this environment to bring in these small businesses, right, to help stimulate the thinking, right? These companies that aren't tethered to, long, arduous bureaucratic processes, right? These guys are working out of basements and garages because all they want to do is deliver a great product, and they're not held back by tons and tons of bureaucracy. So AIRFORCE specifically tapped into that, and that's how we got to meet Jiren. Jiren was at Las Vegas at the AIRFORCE Symposium, and it was actually not me, but one of my troops was out there and met him, saw the robot and thought, we need this. This is the future, right? And when we invited Jiren out to Beale Air Force Base, out in Northern California, about an hour and a half north of Sacramento, that base housed some very, very high-level security assets, some really important radars and different things. Again, we knew that we needed help, right? You only have so many people. You only can use people for so many tasks throughout the day, right? We know that our people work hard, but why not leverage technology to do those things that technology is honestly better at? Computing large amounts of data, traversing treacherous terrain, all those different things. So seeing the robot dog first in action in about 2019 out at Beale Air Force Base, when we wanted to use it, climbing some large hills and, again, doing this terrain analysis and sweeping these large fields that we could use the robot dog for versus sending a human being or two human beings out there to where the human beings can focus on solving people problems, right? As Air Force defenders, we function as a security for the base and a law enforcement function. So me as a squadron commander, what I would really value in my teammates and value my defenders is their ability to interact with people, right? Solve those people problems. And being able to use these robots to give our defenders that enhanced situational awareness, so when they are going into these complex and dynamic situations, they already know what's going on. We limit that fog and friction of those dynamic situations, and again, God forbid it's something high risk and people potentially lose their lives, we have the dog there to help protect those human beings and kind of be that initial line of defense and, ultimately save our defenders' lives, not just in saving them the time, energy, and effort from doing some of those menial tasks, but literally protecting them and keeping them out of harm's way. So again, this is something so exciting, and we know that, this is just the start, right? This is going to grow into something extremely tremendous, and very excited to have Jiren be part of this journey with the United States Air Force and how we're leveraging technology and robotics.
And I love the new approach of using small contractors, like you said, not getting stuck in the bureaucracy of, the processes and, if you've ever been in like a corporate meeting, you're like, we're going to circle back. Like, I don't want to circle
you've
back.
You've obviously never been in the United States military.
No, sir, I have not. Now, Jiren, when you've said in another interview that what the world doesn't need is another research robot. So what was your thinking that made this robot different when you and your team created it?
Yeah, and by the way, I'd like to add, initially we did start out in my basement, and my partner Michelle wanted us out, and so that was a driver to get this business successful, so we can get out of the basement, which we have now. But we originally started in late 2015. I met Gavin and Avik, two brilliant PhD researchers just graduating from University of Pennsylvania, and a friend of mine introduced me to him and said, "Hey, why don't you take on another startup?" And I was like, my God, I've been doing this for 35 years, another startup. And lo and behold, they pitched this idea that, these robots, they've got to work day and night, not just on video. And I just fell in love with that phrase. I said, you're going to make these robots really work. And there's a lot of vendors out there, competitors that make robots that look good on YouTube videos. And we recognize that, these things have got to operate day and night. And I bought into it. And by the way, 5 years later, we've got a robot that is not a research robot. We built it with our customers. It operates all the time. It operates continuously. It's waterproof. They want it to go 6 miles on a single charge, and we do that. They want it to be able to fight or be used in a fighting environment, right? Really rugged and durable, and the robot does that. The robot needs to be fully autonomous, charge wirelessly, right, in any type of weather or condition. Major Criss needed that robot operating in Florida, right? 24/7, humidity, hurricanes. And we said, okay. And that's the kind of feedback we took to build our robot. Completely different kind of dynamic versus, hey, here you go. Here's our research robot. You like it? Let us know. We'll find a market. We decided to actually focus our research and development over 5 years with the major and other U.S. Government agencies.
And you do that for all of your clients, correct? It's very custom. You get that feedback from the customer, and then you adjust the features and abilities of the technology to suit them, right?
Yeah, real time. So literally for the last 5 years, we've been releasing a new robot every 4 months.
What?
Yeah, and it is brutal because if you take a look at that robot, it is as complex as a car. The inside, the electronics, the partners and vendors we have to work with, all the custom parts. And then, of course, we got the customer feedback. And so, yes, we have slept at that office day and night, for many years to get that right.
So you're definitely out of the basement now because you're now sleeping at the office.
I've got a couch from IKEA. It's really cool.
Okay.
I'm not giving that couch up. It's mine. But yeah, and so we've done that. We've built maybe 14 different variants of the robot until we got to this current robot, this 5th generation dog that'll be at Tyndall here.
Wow. So I understand they cost around $65,000 baseline per robot. So what does that compare to the manpower that would be equivalent when the U.S. Air Force is paying them? Like how many men would equal one dog? How cost effective is all of that for the Air Force?
So we're still conducting that research, but ideally, if the robot can essentially take over an entire posted position, a single posted position, that will save up to 6 manpower positions. And the way we kind of figure out that math is that, people have to eat, they have to sleep, they have to be on a work-rest cycle. So with that, if you have a single person patrol and they are patrolling a sector of the base, right, they're looking for adversaries, they're looking for anomalies, and they're out walking, that's a person, that's a vehicle. And you don't want to ever leave a person by themselves. You want them to have a battle buddy just in case something happens. That's radios, that's all these other pieces of equipment, right? And again, for them to go 24/7, you can't rely on a single person to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when you build it into we build into 8-hour shifts, 8-hour scheduled shifts, which isn't really an 8-hour shift. It's an hour beforehand to know and understand kind of what's going on in your environment before, right? Get your intelligence pass-ons, get the pass-ons from the previous shift. Hey, we had these kind of events going on. These are the events that are going to happen during your shift. Swap out those vehicles, inspect all of that equipment. So that's an hour beforehand. Then you have 8 hours of patrolling, interacting with the public, solving those people problems like we talked about, right? Enabling people to come onto the base for base access, or dealing with a law enforcement scenario, right? Everything from the low end of the spectrum being speeding tickets to miscommunications of people not knowing where to go onto the base, to the high end of the spectrum, right? Catastrophic events, active shooters, adversaries trying to do harm to people on the base. So our defenders have to be able to fluctuate between those very, very vastly different ends of the spectrum. So we always want them trained. We always want them prepared. But again, that takes time, that takes energy, that takes effort. And when we can use the robot to do that simplified patrolling versus just having a person kind of walking along that sector route, there's 2 people for that post, right? Now, 8-hour shifts, that's 3 posts per day, which is essentially gets us around that 6 manpower positions for that one position. Now, that's a very, very simplified way of explaining it, right? Because most of the time we aren't going to just use a single defender or 2 defenders to just simply patrol a sector, but that is part of some of their reoccurring duties, because if you don't have camera coverage, if you don't have a sensor platform, if you don't have the ability to understand that battle space and go out and see what's going on in that terrain, a potential adversary might exploit it, or even just somebody that's lost or just trying to, we've had numerous Air Force bases, numerous occasions where people are hiking or they're driving and they just happen to wander into a restricted area along the base perimeter and they didn't even know. So again, we're hopefully able to use this technology again as whether it's a friendly reminder, right? Somebody's walking in or around or near the Air Force Base and they happen to wander into an area they're not supposed to. They're greeted by the robot dog and it says, halt, security forces,
Hi.
You're trespassing. Hello. Still polite,
no, he
professional.
goes, ruh-roh. You in the wrong place.
You're in trouble.
So that person can say, oh, I'm sorry, and walk about there and go back the way they came from, or, that our human beings, right, our defenders are on their way to go up and back up the dog and then talk to those people. But now, going into that environment, our personnel are going to know a lot more about where exactly this event is happening. They're going to know a lot more about the situation of itself, right? And again, like I said earlier, limiting that fog and friction of, when in the days prior to utilizing extensive camera systems and all these other different things, you're relying on a person calling out, hey, I'm over here on a radio. Well, where's over here? I don't know.
Right.
And it's so crazy to see how disoriented you can be, especially when the heart rate is raised, right? You're starting to, there's a complex dynamic situation, especially if it's involving solving some of those really precarious situations. Your heart rate's raised, you're scared, you don't know what's going on. Your ability to effectively communicate, your ability even just to use your fine motor skills to operate that radio significantly decreases because, again, it's just the human body's natural reaction to fear and trying to work through that complex scenario. You can significantly eliminate that by having that dog there to be that initial feedback loop and that initial understanding and pushing that to the responding defenders.
Absolutely. I can totally see that. And the cost factor, that's just talking about that one use case. You're not even talking about the therapy needed for PTSD in a combat situation. So I could see where it would be hard to calculate, especially in these early stage, what the balance out. I'm interested in some other use cases as well that are outside of, security patrolling. I've read, not from Ghost Robotics, but from some other ones, New York City is using robo dogs to clean up crime scenes. there's some kind of robotic wolf being used to scare away bears in villages in Japan.
I love that one.
And then a Norwegian oil company is using it, to patrol their ships. So what are some other use cases that are either happening now or that you feel as somebody that's really got an ear to the ground in that world that could happen?
So my favorite is the wolf dog scaring birds away from the from the farm.
I think it's bears, to be
bears,
fair.
okay.
Bears.
Yeah, even better. Like, who wants to scare a bird? I'd rather scare a bear. So that's pretty cool, but probably no money there. Because that robot doesn't move. It's a pretty cool video from Japan.
I haven't seen it.
But the robot just kind of, stays in one position.
Oh.
Yeah, not really super cool.
Sounds like a bobblehead.
Yeah, exactly, a bobblehead. A wolf bobblehead, wolf dog bobblehead. But in our case, think about all these use cases. So we've got perimeter security.
Right.
Another one is, our robots are being used by U.S. special operators for all sorts of field work. And, as the major said, they're tracking down bad guys, they're clearing buildings, they're targeting areas, whatever they're doing. This robot, in essence, says, hey, I'm going to take a hit for the team, it's a really good feeling, right, for us. We live vicariously through our warfighters and all the servicemen and women. And so that's a really great use case. Another one, real simple. You're talking about inspection. Even Department of Energy, for example, nuclear plant, nuclear spill inspection. Again, really simple, not rocket science, right? Why put a human in harm's way when we can put a electromechanical system, right, in place? We had a exercise in September called ABMS, Advanced Battle Management System, with U.S. Air Force, Air Combat Command, and our robots walk right off the hull. I don't know the technical term with all these, the planes, the birds. Our robots walk right off the cargo plane, and they do perimeter security there. Or somebody from 3,000 miles away can say our plane has landed, and then the Air Force might have a reason for landing that plane right in a foreign country, getting gas, dropping off supplies, or doing some cool stuff that they're never going to tell us about. And then the robot can literally 3,000 miles away and give it instructions that'll go do stuff. Inspect, do security, maybe take out some bad guys. Homeland Security.
Let's pause on that. Because before this, it was like drones, woo, right? Yeah. So, their drones are still amazing. But now this is extra amazing for tons of reasons. But when you said take out bad guys, so is there like a plan to arm these in some way in certain scenarios?
So the way we describe this robot, it's like a computer with legs on it, right? It's got sensors, it's got communications. You can put all sorts of payloads, robotic arms, a manipulator that EOD, or we just did a cool demo with Fire Department in New York. They can use it for a lot of things, right? In public safety. One of the things is how do you use these robots for managing, a conflict situation where our warfighters could get hurt. There's all sorts of other payloads that can be put on there. And so the way we design the robot is we support all sorts of different payloads depending on what the government customer of the agency is. So
it's flexible depending on so there's endless possibilities is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I'll give you another great case. We had another spec ops agency just use our robot as a walking cell tower. So if you think about a battlefield, if you dropped 100 of these robots and they can create a mesh network, and instead of a guy walking with an antenna on his back, now I don't want to use these non-technical terms, but it's like a bullseye on your back that says shoot me. Why would we do that? Drop 100 of these dogs in the field, and if you take up 5, 10, 15, it's still resilient. You still got your own mesh communication network that, with all the new tech that's out there for warfighters, you can keep a kind of continuous network going.
I could definitely see where it would really lessen that human impact of the people that are on the front lines for whatever reason, whether they're checking a cell signal or they're, on the front lines of a conflict. I was watching something about the mines in Angola, the mine removal. Yeah. Is that something that's already happening, mine removal?
It's not happening now, but this is a really good use case, right? So think about our robot. The way we've designed it, you can build it in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. You can build them fat, skinny, tall, long, smaller, heavier, whatever you want. And so if you think about a wider base where you can walk over a certain mine and use a magnometer, it's a sensor, right? It's basically a sensor. You can sense a mine, EOD, mark that area. You can use a manipulator to take it out or do something. Again, these are great ideas. We build the platform, and we rely on our government customers, our U.S. and allied government customers worldwide, to say, hey, we want to do this. And that's when we put our great minds together at Ghost Robotics and our partners. We do this with a lot of partner companies. Can't do this alone. And we deliver a solution.
So when they come a knocking, you get to creating.
we get to creating. And the best part, again, I say, is we're no longer in my basement. So I just want to...
I mean, you're winning. So how do you design these robots to prevent hacking?
Yeah. So this is fundamentally important, right? So we think about these robots as a platform. And we just look at them as objects. But if you're somebody outside the robotics industry, and you see this the first time, like we were out earlier today, kids see it, other, normal consumers walking around and say, wow, that robot. There's a couple things that run through their mind. Wow, that's so cute, amazing. Other people are like, oh my God, what's coming next? And the reality is it's just a platform, and it can be hacked into just like any ATM machine, any server. And so we've taken a lot of pain designing everything from scratch, custom. And so when we go to a government customer, whether it's Air Force or it's an intel agency, whoever, each one has their own different requirements. And we can customize it for that customer. So it's really important that we have to adapt our technology. And it goes back to that original phrase you said, we don't want a lab robot that we're going to shove down people's throats. Customizing technology, that's the future. And that's really our mantra. That's how we work with the major and all the other government customers.
And some of the platforms are, the bare bones of them are technologies that already exist, right? Like the same technology that allows self-driving cars. Isn't that the platform for the robot?
Correct. Yeah, we use this computer called the NVIDIA Xavier, right? Any high-end gaming system, any autonomous car, plane, runs on an NVIDIA CPU/GPU, right? And these mini supercomputers for AI, that's what's in our robot. And you can develop applications on it. So if you develop an autonomous application to do XYZ, by the way, most important thing here is with government customers, a lot of them don't like to tell us what they're doing with it. And
well, that makes for a fun guessing game, doesn't it?
And we have these guessing games at the office. It's like, wonder what they're using it for. But the thing is, they come back to us and say it works or it doesn't. And that type of standardized technology makes life a lot easier to lower costs and adapt it to more applications.
Absolutely. Well, this time is just flying by. But before we wrap up, I want to know from an Air Force perspective and from a robotic perspective, what do you feel that people misunderstand about technology and the Air Force?
So technology is wonderful, right? But it's a double-edged sword. So I think that's where you have people that are very opportunistic, right? And then you have people that are a little more pragmatic, which, it takes all types of people, right? To people that are dreamers and optimists. I can call Jiren in the middle of the night, like, Jiren, I want to make the robot do this, and can you make it do that? And I get to be the mad scientist and not know all the specifics, and then he tells his guys how to, make that happen, which is the wonderful part about it. But then we also have those very smart people that look at, okay, well, how do we, again, secure it, right? How do we secure it from a cyber perspective? How do we continue to pay for it, right? Be good stewards of the taxpayer's dollar. So what we really don't want people what we want people to know is that we invest in this technology, but we're very, we want to make sure that we're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, that we're not wasting money, that we're doing things that are very meaningful, that are going to result in saving people's lives, and that we're not just dumping into a project that isn't going to have a future. This is absolutely going to have a future. This is going to continue to grow and evolve and be something just like when, Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright, when they were flying their first aircraft out at Kitty Hawk, right? I'm sure a lot of people looked at it and said, this thing's going to be worthless. This isn't going to do anything. And it was successful, but it was only successful so far. But then that was the springboard, the launch pad into the future, right? And that's what I think is so exciting about this application, is how we can take this and then continue to grow it and evolve it, but under a very specific lens to make sure that people are getting the appropriate use case for it, right? That we're appropriately using that investment and taking care of our people. Because that's one thing, right? You can use taxpayer dollars and you can use money and save money, but there's no amount of money that's ever going to replace a human being's life. So if we know that we're saving lives or applying applications that will save people's lives, that is invaluable.
I agree. And from a robotic perspective, what do you think people misunderstand?
Yeah, it was before I dropped out of college, I took one course, Science and Human Values, and there was a quote from a book, God, I can forget the author, Is You Ain't My Baby. It's about science and human values. And this robot can be really good, right? But it can also be really bad, right? And it really depends on, it's like dogs, right? There's never a bad dog, it's only the owner. And so, that's how we take a look at technology. We have to be good stewards as humanity, right? Moving forward. Substantial amounts of technological change from now over the next 20 years, and it's exponential, right? If you thought the last 100 years was insane, we are going to see stuff that is going to blow people's minds. People have to be optimistic about it, right? They have to be optimistic, and we have to understand the technology. We cannot bury our heads in the sand. We have to recognize that it can also do bad things, right? We know all the stories and possible scenarios with this virus, for example, right? Where did it come? Was it a natural vector? Was it maybe pushed through some artificial means through a lab, potentially? We don't. Whatever it is, I think that is really a good statement for robotics or any other type of technology, AI moving forward. We have to be good stewards about it. We cannot put our heads in the sand. We have to understand it, recognize and talk about the good and the bad and the ugly. Otherwise, we might regret the outcome. But I'm very optimistic, and humanity's just been a good steward so far. There always will be one or two bad apples here and there, and we've just got to protect against that.
Well, I'm so glad that I've met the two of you and that I feel like I can have this unique perspective to see the progression of this technology and the use cases and the lives that it will save and the creative minds that will come out of the woodwork and knock on your door and say, hey, we want you to come help get a core sample from Antarctica or whatever it may be. So
or deliver food.
Yeah.
I ain't against delivering some food, so I'll take that too. But this was awesome, guys. Thank you so much. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Woo!